Time for another Elsie's Little Pickles, the Pickle Pod for the people, reminding you to take part in the Pickle Protest if you are anti-Trump, anti-MAGA.
I also dislike the Magna Carta.
Yeah, I'm absolutely against Magna Carta and Magnum condoms.
I dropped my monster condom for my Magnum Dong.
Make sure you drop
something Trump has never said in his life.
Drop a pickle on a MAGA supporter. Drop a pickle on a MAGA supporter's porch. Take a picture of it and send it to Elsie's Little
Elon
Pickles.
doesn't even have sex. All of his kids are made scientifically.
Well, we might get to that. But take the pickle picture and send it to Elsie's Little Pickles at gmail.com. All right.
Again, not a picture of your pickle, but a pickle on the porch.
Yes. And you are welcome to use toothpicks and attach olives so it looks like a dick. You're welcome to do that. Make sure they're pimento. That I don't know. It just has
stuffed for the matter.
Yeah, it's stuffed. Cheese. Yeah, well, it can be stuffed with anything.
Yeah, I like the feta ones, but I wouldn't want to waste that.
No. So I think we can all afford a couple of pimentos to go to the wayside. All right. So we've got a this is a very, very packed podcast. We got the full pickle barrel here. We got Kiefer, we got Colton, you got me. What we are doing with this particular podcast is recapping, and we'll get to that. But this is the second part of Time to Get a New Party Started. The idea being both of these parties are completely and totally fucked.
They're dead parties full of dead people.
Yeah,
a dying country.
They just don't know they're dead yet. Mitch McConnell has been rebooting on the regular, but I don't think he's going to make it. Anyways, let's get started and try to get everything in.
Number one, I just want to say, since you like feta, Colton, there's an international market down in Dallas where, granted, hopefully it's still there and not collapsed because of ice.
Mm-hmm.
But they have like a feta bar inside, and there's like 60 different types of feta from all over the
Hell
world.
Yeah. My old roommate, Lauren, friend of the show from the nonprofit episode.
Yeah.
She is half Greek on her mom's side. So anytime she was cooking, there's probably going to be feta. But she was a little bit of a national traitor because she would always opt for the Bulgarian feta instead of the Greek feta.
Ah, well.
I'm an equal opportunity fetist.
All right. But let's back up and let's say a great big ELP thank you and welcome and hello to Lauren's mom. I know she does listen. So
hi, Kathy.
Well,
hi, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. We miss you. We love you. We do. She's awesome. I love Lauren's
She's a riot.
Mom. She kills me. She is absolutely the best. All right. So we got a lot to get through and not a lot of time to do it. However, what we're going to do this episode, for those who are wondering, we're going to, after the news, we're going to recap what we discussed on the last Let's Get a New Party Started. This will be part 2. And in doing so, we're going to try to finish in this episode the principles and platform of what this new party would look like. All right, with that, let's get to Keith and the news.
Here's the news with Gary Gnu.
I used to fucking love that show.
I love it too. RFK Jr. wants to let the bird flu spread on farms. Meanwhile, the Pandemic Response Office is down to 1 staffer.
Oh, fuck.
Oh.
Yes.
Welcome back.
This hits a little close to home right now for me. But essentially, with the bird flu letting it spread on farms, RFK's idea is to let the birds, don't call them, just separate them, put them in their own little segregated area, which can legally now be done because U.S. government has ended anti-segregating people.
Mm-hmm.
Why not chickens too, apparently.
Yeah, it goes to everyone.
That oddly reminds me of a hot take that I heard. It was, so there's this guy that I see every so often on like YouTube shorts or whatever. And he's in New York and he goes, he'll be sitting on the subway with someone random and just go, "What's your hot take?" And this black lady goes, "Bring back segregation, but not because it ever went away. Just, I want to know where I'm welcome and not."
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I was like, fuck, okay.
Well, I never would have saw that coming.
No, but I mean, when you think about it, she at least has a little bit of a point, because like sundown towns are still a thing.
No,
they just don't have the sign anymore. But if they had the sign that said no black people after 9 p.m.,
I hate to
then
say
she would
it.
know, okay, I need to leave.
I hate to say it, but I think that should be for every race. Like certain parts of cities that you shouldn't go to if you're white. Certain parts, I mean, maybe she's got a point there. All right, I got a little different take. I think we should all get along, and
Yeah, in an ideal situation, we wouldn't need to have that take.
Well, it's interesting because I am and always have been and has raised you as a judge a person by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. However, I do get that point. I do get what she's saying, and I think that is almost, it's an unperfect
to judge
point.
A person by their footwear.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
true.
her point was like, okay, she's in New York, obviously she's on the subway, but she was like, if I'm driving down the East Coast, if I see a sign that says gas up in Atlanta, don't stop till Savannah, I'm not stopping till Savannah.
She said that?
Yeah.
That's hysterical. All right.
Hold on. I've been to Savannah, which is very beautiful.
I really want to go.
I've been to Atlanta.
I've been to Atlanta, but not Savannah. I want to go to Savannah.
Savannah's beautiful, and there are sections where it's a little more sketchy to walk down the street, but I'm, again, one of those people. If I'm walking down the street, I am the bad person on the street.
Exactly.
Steve knows I almost went to college in Savannah.
Yeah.
For sound design.
Yeah, we were very close to making the trip down there to see the school, and then you went a different way. I want to get back to this bird flu thing for a moment.
The idea is that they'll be separated. The sickness will work its magic. Whatever bird is left and gets over it gets bred, so that it has the gene, as he thinks, that allowed the bird to get over it.
I don't think it works that way.
I'm not quite sure. I'm not.
I don't think it works that way.
This is the problem with having a non-medical person in charge of something.
The brain worm is calling the shots. Let's be real.
Hold on. Let me call science. Ring, ring.
Yeah, let me call him John Science.
Yeah, ring, ring, science. This is Steve. Bird flu? Thoughts?
It's almost like he hasn't heard of AI, where you could just ask it a question.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually going to be a problem if that's the way that they go. I think that what you'll end up seeing is you'll see the leap from the chickens, and it will eventually hit the humans, and it will be COVID all over again. But good luck to you. Hope you're right.
I'll be over here wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you're right, RFK.
I'll be over here getting duck eggs.
Yeah.
And in other news, Trump is to sign tomorrow an order to shut down the Department of Education.
Great.
Let's go.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
It wasn't functioning well enough already. Time to just shut it down.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, let's face it. Trump actually said, I like stupid people.
Yeah.
If there weren't stupid people, there wouldn't be Trump voters.
Right. Now, let's take that a step further, though, and recognize what the wait what will be, because there will be a wait what. He's going to shut it down. Great. Providing that it's shut down and completely shut down over the course of the summer, and the things that they have to peel off because they're necessary. So like student loans and things like that.
Well, I mean, they already are illegalizing certain red states are already illegalizing free lunch for kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Illegal.
So,
is illegalizing a word?
Yeah, illegalizing.
Is it? I don't know.
You could say outlawing, but it's not exactly cowboys doing it.
Well, all right. It's just that's a very fucking interesting turn of a phrase.
Let me get my cowboy hat.
No. So, yeah, please don't.
This cowboy believes in free lunch for kids in need.
Yeah, same here. But that's my point,
partner.
Well, I think what people don't understand is, all right, they're going to peel off certain things like the student loan, right? Because clearly, student loans. What people may not realize is the government makes money on those. 6% interest is what I paid on mine. So there's a revenue return for them to do it. So it's a money-making venture. Trump's not going to let any money-making venture slip through his fingers. But
this goes right into one of my universals, but we'll get there in a second.
Yeah. But what I think is going to end up happening is more so is all of the work that that division does, a large chunk of it is making sure that disabled and handicapped children are being taught.
Yeah, and have the resources necessary, because like not all handicaps that affect education are mental handicaps.
Exactly. Most of them are actually physical. Yep. So when you don't have the ability to make the changes you need to make so that the student in the wheelchair can get around or is
Well, shit. I when I was in school, I believe I was in, what was that? It was either middle school or high school. A girl that I had gone to all 3 of my public schools with fell extremely ill, like a really aggressively bad flu, essentially, and it attacked her optical nerve, and she went blind, like, early teens. She was perfectly fine. She could see just fine elementary through whenever it happened, and then she got really sick, and it attacked her optical nerve, and she can no longer see.
That sucks.
Without funding for students who need a little extra help, she would not have been able to as quickly or as easily learn and adapt to being blind.
Right.
And going through the educational process. Because, I mean, she not only had to adapt to using the blind stick.
Right.
She also had, I don't know what they're called, the blind stick.
It sounds like an off-brand deodorant. New
from Menon.
Blind stick.
From Menon.
She also had to learn how to use the Braille, like not only Braille reading, but also the Braille keyboard.
Right.
For taking notes.
Right.
And then on top of that, if it weren't for that funding, she would not have had the education specialist that went to classes with her early on before she settled into that reality.
Right.
Before she fully got settled in and comfortable with that reality.
Look, again, this is one of those things where they say things like, look, I do, and I mean this with all sincerity. I love people that have Downs because they're so happy. And we look and we go, oh, you poor thing, you've got a disability.
What's the Shane Gillis bit? They like 2 things. They like tits and John Cena.
Yeah, but that's true. You know what I mean? And if we keep with that bit, Uncle Danny likes a cheese sandwich.
Where'd you get that cheese, Danny?
Where'd you get that cheese, Danny?
First of all,
but
we're going to have to always refer to it as the blind stick because I just looked up its name. And it's no better.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the actual name?
A white cane.
A white cane. I like the blind stick better. All right.
Blind stick just sounds a little more to the point.
Yeah, and
but it said it's a
let's call it what it is.
AI said the white cane is a powerful tool. And all I could think of was I can do anything. White cane. Don't cross me. It is my powerful tool.
You shall not pass. I have a white cane.
Yeah,
you
got all fucking Gandalfy. All right, so they want to get rid of the Department of Education. I'm not going to stand in the way. I'm not even going to really comment on it. But I think the wait what is going to be a big wait what for this administration, because if they are able to demolish everything and then reorganize to the best of their abilities, having other departments take care of those things, what will end up happening is come the new school year, and again, maybe they figure out, oh, wait, no, we do have to have funding that goes to these schools for,
Yeah,
disabled.
otherwise we have textbooks that are donated by the public library from 1980.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out, but I don't think that that's going to work out. And I think that the parents of the children who are, whether they have, whatever whatever the condition is, when they start to realize that they're going to be out of pocket large amounts of money for their children to go to school at a public school because of the Department of Education being gone, I think that worm will turn pretty quick against the Trump administration.
Yeah, what do you mean I owe $30,000 for a public school?
Exactly.
Have either of you seen the video where it is a family sitting around a table, and the caption is the cat is going to hell. And as the camera pans around, you see the cat sitting on someone's lap, staring, like making that confused what the fuck face.
Yep.
And it's staring at the one person that has Down syndrome.
Yeah, I have seen that. I have seen that.
I haven't seen that one. I have not.
Oh.
All right. Next story.
Anyway.
All right. Next story. What are we on? 2? 3?
That's 2.
Yeah.
That's 2.
This is going down 3. I have some good news for you.
Shut up.
Yes.
We love some good news.
The cause of Parkinson's has been found for the first time by scientists.
Too bad we're not going to fund that research anymore, baby.
Well, there's some good news and some bad news.
All right.
The good news is that it has nothing to do with the U.S. This is the University of Australia.
Oh, good.
Who discovered it.
Good.
And because they've discovered it, it's called the pink-1 protein, which they've named a while ago, but they've never been able to find it. It was always theoretical. They found it.
Okay. So
which means everything.
Okay, so does that mean potentially they're going to be able to get Michael J. Fox for Back to the Future 5?
4.
4. Sorry.
Little Down syndrome yourself?
Yeah, maybe.
But yes, they have found this pink-1 protein. They are now working on a way to not only dissolve it, but prevent it.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
Yes.
Because one thing that I want to point out is from my psychology side of my undergrad, there is a strong link between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So this also feeds into preventing Alzheimer's.
Possibly. Correct. Yeah, possibly.
Or could.
Yeah.
The bad news is that a female is in charge of finding this, and the United States doesn't deal with DEI hires.
I'm sorry. You're a woman. Clearly it was DEI. I got to tell you, like,
so who was the man in charge?
Yeah. Excuse me, little lady.
Who was the white man?
Who is the bearded white man, or at least a man with a mustache that I can speak to about your findings? Because
where can I find the beard of knowledge?
I'll even take a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Unbelievable.
But the last news story isn't really a huge thing. It's just, gosh, what is her name? You need to look up her name here.
Oh, great. You decide to look up her name now?
Yes. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, as in leave it alone, you stupid bitch.
Yeah, she's something.
She had, what's that?
She is something.
Yeah, she is truly a work of.
She's a Karen with a microphone.
Yeah.
You know, I find it funny, the theory that conservatism makes people ugly, because, like, she's in her 20s. She's closer in age to me.
28. Yeah, she's 27 or 28.
She's closer in age to me than you guys, but looks like she was born in 1980.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, when you're full of hatred and resentment,
it ages you.
It ages you. When you have to spew other people's lies, it ages you. if you look just in the 2 months that she's been in this position, she's aged.
Yeah.
Just in the two fucking months.
Did you see the reporter fact checking her live?
Yeah.
Calling her out on it?
Yeah.
I did not, but let me guess. That news organization is no longer welcome.
Well, that was NBC.
Sure
that was NBC.
I'm sure that reporter is laying somewhere in the Rose Garden dead.
Well,
yeah, that reporter specifically got disappeared, but then the news agency they were working for is no longer welcome at the White House.
Well, wait a minute.
The proper term is unalive.
Yeah. Wasn't that NBC News White House correspondent Garrett Hayek?
I don't have a name.
Yeah, I believe it was. And let me pull this up here.
The point that I'm going with this is that she had some words about the judge who gave the order and the judgment about the deportation.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that judge is going to get disappeared as well.
Maybe.
Well, the thing that I wanted to bring up is apparently Leave It and MAGA and Trump and any Republican has not actually read the 14th Amendment, Section 1. Do you know what the last sentence of that is?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't know chapter and verse here.
Nor shall any state deprive any person, not citizen, any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws.
Well, yeah, because the Constitution doesn't just apply to citizens; it applies to anyone on American soil. And on top of that,
Correct.
with this ICE being the brown shirts of modern America and disappearing people and not giving them due process and all of that, you could, if you can prove in court that they are a member of Tren de Aragua or MS-13 or whatever, if you can prove they're a member, you can deport them anyway.
Right. You
can seize their property and deport them anyway.
Really
you don't
quick,
need to do this whole fascist song and dance, but they're doing it because they're fascists. So,
could I get a glass of Tren de Aragua on the rocks?
Absolutely.
The fact that both of you can say that off the top of your head, because I've been reading it and trying to figure out how to say it, and my big fucking lips and teeth won't let that word come out.
I've just been hearing it too much.
Yeah, Colton is educated. I have lived in Texas too long that I can see it and just
there you go.
It.
All right. Is that all the news?
Well, is it ever really all the news?
No, just all the news that you've prepared.
Yes, that is now all of the news. And action.
So literally, we had, when you were sick, Keith, we had gone through, and Colton and I had started this process. We both had come up with kind of core principles that we thought were important. However, with that being said, that doesn't mean that that's all of it. So since you weren't able to be part of the first process, what I would like to do is I'd like to put this in a circumstance of you get to decide whether or not we're on the right track or the wrong track. Sound good?
Yes.
All right, Colton, why don't you hit your 5 cores?
Yeah, so how I had alluded to this in the previous episode. I have mine broken down into 5 universals and 10 non-negotiables, right?
Okay.
So just quickly recapping, we only really got to my 5 universals last time.
Yes.
We'll spend a little more time on the non-negotiables this time around. Number 1 is universal single-payer healthcare. Like every other developed Western nation, the only private healthcare in my concept would be elective or non-life-saving surgeries. Right. So
that was going to be my number 1.
If you want a fucking nose job, you're paying out of pocket for that. But if you have a tumor that's if you have a tumor that's pressing against your brainstem, that's coming out for free.
Right. Oh no. Oh yeah.
Number 2 is the universal right to domestically grown food. And this would be paid by shifting food subsidies away from the meat and dairy industry, because that's about 70% of our food subsidies in the States. If we shift that towards domestically grown fruits, vegetables, and grain, essentially you could have a situation where you could go to Taco Bell and get your, cheesy bean and rice burrito for free, right?
Mhm.
That's also, again, just a universal. If you want a steak, I'm not telling you no. I enjoy a good steak, but because of our food subsidies, the price of a steak is artificially deflated so much that you can get a $30 steak when that's really not representative of the price of that food product because of the subsidies.
Yes.
But because you have the universal right to, let's call it raw domestic ingredients, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to that. That's half of your food budget or more that you are now saving. You can spend on that nice steak. You can go to a nice dinner,
and
so on and so forth.
I mean, think about it too. Not that I'm pro or anti-vegan in any way, shape, or form. Okay. But essentially, that would put people in a position, specifically people who are lower income, to be able to eat healthier and for less, if not for free. So, like,
I mean, a McDonald's cheeseburger has no fucking right being $1.60 or whatever it is, right? It has no right because
a salad,
not only is it horribly expensive for the meat without the subsidies, but on top of that, it's horribly unhealthy.
Well,
so
let's
by shifting those subsidies around, you can have a very, very healthy diet. You can still spend and get that nice steak. You can still spend and get chicken. You can still spend and get, so on and so forth.
I would put an asterisk on that because a McDonald's hamburger has less sodium than your average salad.
But a salad,
in fact,
probably because of the dressing.
Yeah, I was going to say it's because of the dressing. But the idea that you can get a hamburger for $2, but you can't get a salad for under
For
$7.
free?
No, I'm just saying, like, currently, if you go get like a salad as a meal. Let's say you wanted like a salad with crispy chicken in it, right? Yeah, you're going to pay for the crispy chicken. But I don't think, 12 thin slices of crispy chicken in your salad is going to put
you get 12. I usually get 4.
Well, yeah, 5, I know.
6.
I'm trying to be nice.
Cheap bastards.
But like, you should be able to get a salad, especially a salad that has no meat in it. So like, all right, great, antipasta, chicken, all that stuff. Yeah, that would be extra.
You're paying for the protein, but you shouldn't be paying for the vegetables or the fruit.
I agree with you. I do agree with you on
these
that.
Things grow on trees.
And but here's the thing, right? They don't want us healthy.
No, the whole idea is if we're unhealthy, we're overworked, we're overstressed,
keep them fat and stupid.
Yeah, we don't have time to get an education. Then with all of that combined, we as a populace don't have the ability to think critically of the government.
Exactly. And that's the reason why that hasn't happened.
What's interesting about that, I've been watching 1923.
Okay. How is it, by the way? I'm a big Taylor.
I like 1923.
I'm a big Taylor Sheridan fan. 1923. That's got who in it? Is that
Harrison Ford, Helen Mirren?
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they're walking through town, and there's a salesman with a fridge, a laundry machine, and he also sells electricity.
Does he say that belongs in a museum?
No, but he is trying to do a sell job, and the cowboys are like, so I have to pay for the electricity and pay for these machines that use the electricity to run the machines. I'm no longer working for myself. I'm working for you then.
It's kind of true.
And that it's hard.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit. They're right.
It very true. Very true.
So my third is universal right to clean air and water, holding corporations accountable for their environmental damages, and requiring strict, let's say, regulations to move towards a more eco-friendly setup for all businesses, small and large. But it's mostly the mega corporations that are environmentally damaging.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? 100 companies are responsible for 70% of climate change and global warming.
I think that there should be like this. I get the idea of all the regulations for all these businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do get that. But wouldn't it be simpler? Wouldn't it be quicker and maybe simpler? And I'm speaking from the top of my head right now, so this isn't fully thought out. To just go, all right, you guys do whatever you want to do. But if you cause any environmental damage whatsoever, we're putting you out of business.
That would be simpler, but in the interest of selling to the American people, I feel like the kind of middling position between letting them do whatever they want and shutting them down immediately if they do. I would also prefer to just, if you do a notable environmental damage, you're just out of business.
Yeah, no, we're going to liquidate you to pay for the cleanup.
I would prefer that, but in the interest of selling to the American people this new party, I think the middling position makes a little more sense of, no, you will be held accountable legally and in financially and in every possible way for any environmental damages that you cause to the air and water.
Well, let's go to the referee. Kiefer?
I think you're going to have to sell the middle.
Well,
even though I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement,
but we understand the sale has to be made.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm cool with that.
So
Even
my number,
if you force them to hire an entire team to help clean it up.
No, I say you put them out of fucking business. I mean, like,
I would prefer to put
that would be my
or they
preferred.
forego any profit.
You don't even necessarily have to jump straight to putting them out of business. You could nationalize the company.
Yeah.
And in so doing, you force their hand into behaving, essentially.
No, that may be another option. All right. And that was that
my number 4 is a universal right to free education. It's just simply necessary for the continuation of a modern country.
Which, speaking of that, did you hear Harvard's announcement?
No, I did not.
Harvard is now saying that education will be free for anyone who makes less than $200,000 a year.
I have a chance.
Yeah, you do. As long as you don't tell them what your parents make.
And that would be paid for by shifting funding away from the military. I didn't look up the exact number, but last I remember, it was something to the effect of like 65 cents of every dollar in taxes goes to the military from every person across the board. And that's
ridiculous,
simply that's simply ridiculous. It's not sustainable. And on top of that, we have a larger military than the next, I think, 10 countries
11
combined.
and 9 of them, the first 9 I think it is, are our allies or were before Trump.
Not to mention we also have the 3 largest air forces in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Not only our national air force, but also the Navy division of the Air Force and the Army division of the Air Force.
Yeah. So we kind of got that covered.
We can rein that in. You know, we can maybe bring that down a little bit and still be on top.
Well, look,
Hogwarts was paid for.
Well, I think one of the things that you got to think about when it comes to the military specifically is that you hear this conversation. We can't afford Social Security. We can't. It's going to go insolvent.
Yeah, we're only giving nearly $1 trillion a year to the military.
Well, no, it's beyond that. Okay, so like when we were shooting down shit for Israel, every time we shot one of those fucking missiles, it was like $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, speaking of shooting down things, the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia has already
been shot down.
Yeah, same with the ceasefire with Israel and
Gaza,
Hamas.
Yeah. But
they were ceasefires in name only. The aggressor on both ends of those 2 wars, the aggressor continued no matter
the excuse from Russia was nothing had been actually agreed upon.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
And then my number 5 is universal right to decent housing. A, because you can't work if you can't shower or cook food.
If you don't have an address, you can't get a job.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So my proposition for this is that all housing accommodations under 1,000 square feet, whether that's an apartment, a condo, or a house, will be nationalized once the current occupant leaves, and appropriate compensation will be given for houses and condos. Obviously, a little different with apartments. Larger accommodations.
I have long thought
Yeah.
that if a construction company wants a significant tax break, you can get a significant tax break as long as you build a house and give it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once per year.
And then my only addition to that is in the short to medium term, larger accommodations can continue being privately owned and sold, but strict housing price regulations will be imposed.
Okay. So that were your 5. All right.
That was my 5 universals. I still have my 10 non-negotiables, but I'll throw it over to you to hit your 5 or 6 most important.
Well, it's not necessarily that I had these as most important, or even, I mean, these ones are core. So pragmatism over partisanship, solutions grounded in evidence, not ideology, unity and inclusion, bridging divides across political, cultural, and socioeconomic lines, accountable governance, transparent, efficient, and responsive government, sustainable prosperity, economic growth paired with environmental and social responsibility. I would add to that individual freedoms with social responsibility, balancing personal liberty with community well-being. So that would be my top 5 probably.
Mm-hmm.
But we did get into a few things that I had listed differently. So like healthcare, universal healthcare access. So we're in agreement on that. Address the cost, transparency, and reduce the bureaucratic red tape in healthcare delivery. I absolutely think you should be given a fucking menu, so with prices when you're in a hospital, so you can decide whether or not you want to spend $50 for a fucking aspirin.
I would say you should just get that aspirin for free.
I would agree with you, but I don't think that in the short term is something that is feasible yet.
I think
why
it absolutely
not? Most
is.
of the prices are actually made up.
Yeah, they are, and that's why I'm saying, like, you should, like, if they're giving you an aspirin, you should be able to go, no, I'm not taking your aspirin. I'm going to take my aspirin.
Yeah,
because it's fucking aspirin, and you're going to charge me a bunch of money for yours, and I got a whole fucking bottle right here. And let's see here, and that was pretty much it. So
okay.
So I think when we get in, all right, now I want to get into your non-negotiables, because I think your non-negotiables were very interesting to me.
Before we get into the non-negotiables, we got to talk party name.
All right. So we had come up with, what we had come up with was the United Solutions Party, USP. But that doesn't seem to really ring your bell.
No.
All right.
You could put a C in front of that. CSP. I have a couple of ideas.
Okay.
Hear me out. One is the Evergreen Alliance, symbolizing sustainability and enduring values.
That is the gayest fucking thing I've ever heard. Go fuck yourself.
All right. My next idea is the Horizon Party, suggesting a vision for a brighter future.
I'll let you take that one.
one that I would lean into is like the People's Union Party. Sounds kind of boring, sure, but we're talking about uniting people. We're talking about universal access to certain things, certain necessities.
How about, and I actually like this one a lot, the Forward Collective.
I like that one.
Yeah,
that one I don't have a problem with. Your first two.
Yeah, I know. I picked those just because they were a little.
Yeah, I mean, your first two, man. I swear to God, I wanted to find a tampon.
The Forward Collective.
All right, so the Forward Collective. All right, so now let's get into non-negotiables.
Yeah, so first and foremost, a lot of my non-negotiables are economic in nature. Some are not, but most are. So first things first, the right to make and join a union.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The problem in this country is that the union has been busted, and it's been busted by the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And the movement of the right to work, which is an oxymoron because they want to take that right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I totally...
Which I believe, I think I have that as one of my points. We'll get there in a second.
I'm going to tell a story real quick, right? So bridging the gap from being a stand-up to not being a stand-up, there was a period of time that I worked for Dick's Sporting Goods, right? I thought this would be...
Oh, I just thought you meant that was...
well, here's the thing. In their onboarding...
He was working those dicks.
I was working those dicks. So
I didn't even know you were a porn star.
Well, I don't share everything with you, bitch.
You said last night.
The onboarding at Dick's Sporting Goods, they have a video that tells you how bad the union is, why you're never going to start a union, why you shouldn't even say the word union, and union is anathema. And here's the thing.
Same with Amazon, same with down the line.
Right. And this is exactly to that point. When an employer...
I'm not dying.
When an employer on your first day is telling you 100 reasons why you better not fucking start talking union, doesn't that mean that you really should start talking union?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is usually every employer.
So it's time we start calling out, and that's another thing. I don't think that this happens enough. I think it's time we start calling out non-union employers. You know what I mean?
Like, go fuck yourself. If I choose to join a union, that's none of your fucking business unless it is your business.
I think that there should be a fast food union. I think that there should be a retail workers union. I think that retail workers union should include all retail.
I'm so happy you say that, because my point number 2, my second non-negotiable, is the right to sectoral bargaining.
Mm-hmm.
So this leads up to something that I think you had some questions about when I had sent it over to you. But
first, for the audience, explain what sectoral bargaining is.
Yeah, so sectoral bargaining is essentially the concept that every worker within a sector has the right to join a union and, as a sector, bargain with their employers.
Yeah,
right. So
collective bargaining.
Instead of just my previous job, I worked at Olive Garden, right? I was a waiter. So instead of just saying, okay, I have the right to make and join a union for Olive Garden or Darden restaurants, instead saying, I am a food service worker, I can join the food service union, and as a sector of food service, we can collectively bargain with all food service employers. So that would include McDonald's, that would include Burger King, that would include
everything.
Olive Garden,
all of
any
them.
Food service. That is my second non-negotiable, is the right to sectoral bargaining.
They are terrified of that, because in many of what a lot of people don't realize is that in the tip sector of employment, specifically waiters, waitresses, bartenders,
the most I ever made as a waiter was $3.72, and that was because federal minimum wage for service workers, for tipped workers, was $3.72.
Yeah, that $3.72 an hour.
Yeah. So essentially that covered my taxes.
But that's the thing is that when you look at it, a lot of times your tips versus your taxes, you can end up making nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think that the idea of collective bargaining, look, do I want to spend more when I go to McDonald's or any fast food restaurant? No. Do I want to spend more when I go to any sit-down restaurant or casual fast food? No, I don't. Will I? Absolutely. Why? Because I know that they're actually making a living, okay?
Yeah.
You look at any European country, and it's an insult to tip the waiter, because that's like you saying, oh, you poor thing, your employer doesn't pay you.
You're not making a living.
You're not making a living, and your employer doesn't pay you enough to do this job.
Yeah, when there are literally like career waiters in Europe.
Right, and there
are career waiters.
They make great livings, because no matter what you might think of the restaurant industry, for as big as it is, it's actually pretty small, especially when you get into the finer dining. And and when you have a great waiter, you try to hold on to that waiter.
Yeah.
And that waiter will have a reputation. That waiter will have, other restaurants that if you get into a fuck you fight with that waiter, they're going to be serving tables in minutes at another restaurant.
Yeah.
That's how good they are.
Which I think for my 3 and 4 for my non-negotiables, I'm going to flip them just so it makes a little more sense. So my next one is the establishment of a presidential economic cabinet. Members of this cabinet are democratically elected by their sector. The president will not pick the members of this cabinet. They already have their cabinet that they can pick members of. Whoever the president is at any given moment, they can already pick their cabinet members.
So this is a different cabinet.
This is a second cabinet, yes.
And this second cabinet would be elected. And when you say
it would be
by
elected by sectors.
Okay, so give an example of what those sectors would look like.
Perfect. So let's say we're talking the technology sector.
Okay.
Right. In the technology sector would be all of the technology unions. So that would be the Apple union. That would be depending on how you want to cut it, the Tesla union. That would be depending on how you want to cut it, the SpaceX union. That would be, depending on how you want to cut it, the Meta union, the Microsoft union.
So you're literally saying that like all these major corporations would have one union representative that would be elected by the people who work at that company.
Hold on. Maybe it would make a little more sense explaining it verbally if I talk bottom up instead of top down.
All right.
So you have all of these small unions, right? Or smaller unions. You have your Apple union and your Microsoft union and your Tesla union, let's say. All 3 of those plus all of the other ones that would count for the tech union.
So all of those tech unions would have to...
They would have essentially a mega union.
That would... Okay, so that makes sense.
That would be for the entire sector for the nation.
Right. Okay. So to clarify this and make this as simple as possible for people to understand, essentially every one of these major corporations would have a union within itself. And then within that union, they would have their representatives and their leaders. And then those leaders would bubble up. You have the president of the Apple union, the president of the Microsoft union. But at one point...
And all of the presidents of those unions would then get together, and members of individual unions would be allowed to attend, and they would be casting votes as well. But essentially, your Apple union would pick a leader, your Microsoft union would pick a leader, your Meta union would pick a leader, and then all union members would vote on a sector union leader.
Okay, so that would be
the sector union leader would be the member of the presidential economic cabinet.
Okay, so you have all these single individual unions, all these individual union presidents. They and every one of these that would fall under the tech sector would then vote to have the person who's going to represent them in this cabinet in Washington.
Call it the for ease. Call the individual heads of the unions leaders. Call the sector leader the sector president.
Okay.
And the sector president is then a member of the presidential economic cabinet.
That makes total sense.
Another example would be if we're talking like the UAW, right? Sean Fain is the president of the UAW right now. Let's call him a leader instead of a president to avoid confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the UAW is also in the same sector union as the Teamsters, is in the same sector as the longshoremen.
Okay.
And so on and so forth. And let's say they all collectively as a sector vote Sean Fain, who is the UAW president, to be the sector president.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Sean Fain then becomes the transportation sector
cabinet secretary.
Yeah, cabinet secretary or sector president.
Right. And that actually makes sense because then when you're talking the benefits to the workers, I guess.
Mhm.
In any type of collective bargaining, you're actually it's more difficult for as big as the UAW is, or even like the teachers union. For as big as they are, they're just a union. But when you're able to collectively pull
and have the direct ear of the president, because you have a sector president who is a member of the economic
it's one
cabinet.
thing for a cabinet member it's one thing for a union leader to go, all right, fuck you, the UAW's out, we're fucking going on strike, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. It's another thing when you go, I'm going to shut down all of transportation.
Yeah, or I'm going to shut down all of tech.
Yeah. I'm going to shut down Teamsters. I'm going to shut down longshoremen. I'm going to shut down UAW. I'm shutting down an entire fucking sector of our economy if you don't have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
That's a lot more bargaining power. Is it dangerous, though, to have that much power within one cabinet secretary or representative's realm? You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of power to put into any. So as an example, if you said we're going to shut down tech, or we're going to shut down education, or we're going to shut down transportation, we're going to shut down, because I mean, under that, airlines would be part of that. So you got to kind of almost, I think you need to break that down maybe a little bit more, in my opinion.
I have an addition later that I guess I could soft launch right now with the unions, which is the introduction of votes of no confidence.
Okay.
So if your sector president is going off on another one and the majority of the sector does not agree with what they're doing, you can call a snap vote of no confidence and remove them, have a snap election to put in a new person.
Well, I appreciate that, but I would say that logistically, it would make more sense that you had like Teamsters and UAW. Okay, that's one division. All right. Longshoremen and aviation. That's another one. Right. I think that there's got to be like, you can't have one representative, one cabinet secretary, one of these leaders who can literally shut down the country. They need to be able to shut down a portion of it in order to collectively bargain for the best interest of the people that are in that union.
That's fair. I was mostly thinking of it in the sense of like, okay, the cabinet has about 20 people, the presidential cabinet.
Yeah, roughly.
If we're cutting down, and maybe you could divide it a little further, like you're saying, but my thought on it is essentially, like you were saying, having the sector power of like, okay,
I agree with that.
The president of the sector is saying the president is not listening to me on this, this, and this, and because of that, we are going to go on strike.
Right. And I think that in theory, that's actually a fantastic idea. In how it would be practiced, I think that there would have to be a little bit of temperament put to it, mainly because of the fact that you could end up with one particular sector.
Well, and also strikes have to be voted on anyway.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Under the current conception. So like.
True. Right. All right. So let's get the yes or yay or nay from Kiefer.
I would say yay.
Economic cabinet.
Yeah.
I say yay as well. I think it needs to be.
It makes sense.
I think it needs to be refined. I think that there's.
But as a concept, it's good.
I think as a concept, it's great. Actually, I think as a concept, it's great. I think that to put that in practice, there would be need for a little bit more division. I don't think any one of these leaders should have the ability to shut down a large chunk.
Well,
you can make it painful. Make it painful. Like,
again, you as a union, you already have to have a majority vote to go on strike in the first place.
Well,
so
again,
I think that concept would carry forward anyway. So
I would think it would, but my only argument is
the transportation sector thinks that they're being slighted by a certain bill that the president might sign, or a certain mode of operation that Congress is working with. the cabinet leader can call for a vote, decide, okay, I'm seeing 60% of my sector are saying, fuck this.
Right.
Let's go on strike.
Yeah, I think I could get behind that. Like I said, I think it needs some refining, but I think I could get behind it.
That's fair.
It's always going to need some refining, but...
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is that, when you're talking about something as difficult as creating a new political party, you have to be able to call bullshit on yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that we're in a position in this country where we need to figure out what is bullshit and what's not bullshit, but we also need to figure out. You see, that's the thing is like the truth doesn't mean shit anymore, and everything's a lie or everything can be questioned. There needs to be some sort of set concrete. This is the rule. This is the way it works, and that's that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna slam fire a couple of these just because they're shorter points, and we're already getting a little long in the tooth here.
Yeah.
So federal minimum wage becomes adjusted by inflation yearly rather than by congressional action, and bring back FDR's right to employment with employment programs for public works projects.
You got no disagreement from me on that.
Yeah.
Then next to that, I kind of got into the EVs and sustainable energy.
Okay.
Where we have immediate and decisive action on redesigning the highway systems and other necessary infrastructure with eco-friendly, long-lasting materials, whether that's Roman concrete or, roads made out of recycled tires or whatever it ends up being. That would include electric vehicle infrastructure so people can take EVs cross-country without worry. And related to that, I have the standardization of electric vehicle chargers and batteries on consumer models. And with that, I want to bring back the job of gas station attendant, specifically for electric vehicles, where every gas station has, say, 200, capacity to charge 200 electric vehicle batteries, which are now standardized. And you can either choose to fill up your own electric vehicle, charge it up, which will take, half an hour, whatever the case may be. Or you could pull up for a quick swap of your battery by a professional. And in so doing, you can, as quick or quicker than filling up your gas vehicle, get a new battery that's fully charged because it was already on the charger at the station and be on your way.
I think that that's a brilliant idea. I don't know how that works in practice, though, and I mean this. I don't know, so I don't know how long it would take because you have a bank of batteries, right? It's not just one battery.
Let's say it's 200 batteries per station, whatever.
What I'm saying is, let's say a car takes 10 batteries. So how quickly can you swap out 10 batteries? Well, you're not going to be able to do it in the same amount of time.
No, I'm saying you standardize it so it's one unit.
Okay, I got you. So like the batteries,
standardize it so it's one unit and one unit and one charger across vehicles, across manufacturers, in the same way that early in auto, like gas powered car production, we had to figure out, okay, are we standardizing the gas pumps? Are we standardizing the gas pump receiver?
Yeah.
Are we standardizing?
I agree with you on all of that. Yeah. I'm simply saying from the perspective of the EVs that are out on the road today. So that may be something that has to change in the future. It may not be something that is going to be applicable to the current EVs that are on the road.
Okay.
No matter what. So some of them have them, where they're readily available to
like you can charge a Tesla pretty much anywhere.
Well, no, I'm saying like the battery accessibility to the battery.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then how many are in that bank, right? Well, if you get it to the point where it's one battery or two batteries or even 5, okay, you can change 5 batteries pretty quick, and then put them back together in parallel. You can get that done pretty quick. But when you're talking, more than 5 and accessibility to them, is under the car I mean, that may become...
Which again, that's why I would propose standardizing it across manufacturers. So as we increase our usage of electric vehicles, it's a lot easier to be certain that your charger is going to match your charger port wherever you end up, and your battery, if you choose to get a hot swap, you can just pull up, get a hot swap, be back on the road in 5 minutes, like you pumped gas.
Well, what's your take on that, Kiefer? Or is that a yay or a nay?
That's going to be a yay because unlike standardized testing, it has to be universal.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It has to be.
Yeah, I mean...
Much like Tesla has got their own style of charger.
Yeah, and people have already made adapters for it. But
well, see, I mean, that's the thing, though, is I think that you're no matter what, at some point, you're going to get to that Apple versus Android charger. You know what I mean? Like,
which Apple lost their court case, and that's why new Apple phones have Type-C chargers.
Which is what Android uses, right?
Yeah, yes. Apple lost a court case in the U.S. and multiple in the EU. And because of that...
many outweigh the need of the few.
Yeah, because of that, they now have to use Type-C.
So we are getting a little bit long in the tooth on time here.
I got 3 more. I can cruise through them real quick.
You can absolutely do that. Yeah, absolutely do that. But what I was going to say is that this is what I thought was going to be a 2-parter is clearly going to be a 3 or 4-parter on this particular series, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
it means
more thought.
It means that we're actually putting thought into what it is that we're saying, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to consolidate everything into a very, very nice, neat little package. But I want to finish your 3, and we'll leave it at that. And then on the next pod, what we'll do is we'll pick up with me and mine.
Okay.
And then if Keith, if you have any additionals that you want to throw in between, but in the meantime, I like you being the judge because you're just a little bit younger than me, and Colton's a lot younger than me, and I know that just because of age and perspective, it's easy to dismiss the ideas, no matter how brilliant they are, that come from the youth. And I don't want to do that. So I love the idea of having a mediator on this. All right, go ahead. Hit me with them.
That, and quite frankly, I look great in a robe.
Yeah, you do. You do. The wig was a bit much, but the robe.
Well, originally it was a toupee for down below, but
yeah, it was.
You guys couldn't see that on camera.
Not the merkin.
Yeah, it was the merkin.
I was about to say I moved the merkin north, mainly because it was itching.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you didn't like your gift for your birthday,
it was a secondhand merkin, so you know.
Okay, so
I can tell the crabs I had to get introduced.
Yeah, no, Colton knows. And look, if you didn't like your birthday gift from me, you could have just asked for the receipt. Do you know how hard it is to find a secondhand merkin?
Yes, I do.
All right, hit me with your 3.
All right, so my number 8 is immediate normalization with Cuba, China, and North Korea. Those are the 3 countries that we consider the largest threat to us right now without necessarily having... Yeah, Cuba. We consider Cuba, especially under Trump, we consider Cuba a national threat and sponsor of terror. Which...
Oh, no.
Obama...
He's got a bottle of rum.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no, he's got a nice cigar. So, with Cuba specifically, Obama tried normalization, Trump reversed it, and then Biden tried normalization right at the end there. He tried to he took Cuba off the international sponsor of terror list, and as soon as Trump was reinstated, they got put back on the international sponsor of terror list.
Yeah, so, you can't have them invading the Major League Baseball.
Yeah, they would just absolutely trounce us. But those 3 in particular, I don't see as much of a threat as we would like to believe they are in America. Not to say that there aren't certain threats, particularly from China, kind of from North Korea.
Well, with North Korea, you have a little bit of insanity.
Yeah, and I think normalization would cull the insanity.
Yeah, you might have a point there.
With North Korea specifically, if we were just like, hey, we're going to drop the sanctions, we're going to drop we're going to drop the embargo. We're over it. Can we shake hands and move forward?
But here's the problem with that, okay? There is the human rights violations, okay? Because let's face it, they're not a threat aside from their nuclear aspect, because even their best soldiers, they're so malnutrition or malnourished.
And I don't discount that there are human rights violations, but since when has America cared about that? And also, by normalizing with them, we will be able, by putting our hand out and trying to shake hands and move forward, we will be able to use soft power in such a way that we can probably move them away from that, is my point.
Well, you might have actually a really good point there, but like I said, I don't think that they're a threat because the nutrition level in that country is so low that even those that are fed the best, which are their soldiers, can be blown over with a good gust of wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, the only threat that they really bring is nuclear, and beyond that, I mean,
which if we extend a hand and we say, okay, we were wrong. You were wrong on certain things. We were wrong on certain things. Let's shake hands and move forward, and we can work this out.
Well, you
reduce the chance of nuclear war, which is
true.
Continuing my point, the whole dick waving contest, particularly between China and North Korea with us, it's only going to end in death and destruction and nuclear war.
Right.
Cuba hasn't done shit wrong since at least the 70s, and I would argue they really haven't done shit wrong ever.
Right.
Since the overthrow of the Batista regime, right?
Okay. Yeah. I think I would agree with you on that.
On the other end of that, all states engaging in genocidal acts of war, I'm looking at you, Israel, or imperialist land grabs, I'm looking at you, Russia, will now be sanctioned and embargoed.
Well, then you're going to have to look in the mirror, too, because it looks like, Trump wants to take over Canada and Greenland.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's acceptable either.
I don't think it's acceptable. I think it's crazy.
My point being, if you're violating human rights and you are, if you're actively violating human rights or engaging in land grab behavior, you are now the pariah state. And anyone that we have historically been beefing with, let's try to normalize, let's try to move forward. We will engage in soft power for you. You will engage in soft power to a degree for us, and we'll normalize.
I think soft power has a lot more power than the name gives inclination to. I think that the idea of being kind of the walk softly but with a big stick is where you want to be. You want to be the person. You want to be the country that every other country knows.
I'm not going to hit first, but if you hit, I will hit back devastatingly.
Right. So, like, I go back to Colin Powell on this one, right? And in Desert Storm, his idea was you hit them so hard in the beginning that it's devastating. You throw everything at it, and what?
That's how you end up with Al Qaeda members.
Well, no. I mean, when we went in for Desert Storm, I'm talking about from a kind of like a strategic point of view. When we went into Desert Storm, Colin Powell was basically it was we're gonna come in,
steamroll them, and then back off,
back off, right? So you hit them so fucking hard that by the 3-4 days later, 5 days later, a week later, when you back off, they're just willing to drop their weapons.
Which is fair to an extent, but I don't like that approach in the sense that, in the same way that Israel doing what they're doing in Gaza is only creating more Hamas members.
I agree with you on that. I'm saying like when you get to the point where, as a country, as the United States, right? If we get it, we're not going to bother you. You do your thing, blah blah blah. But if we get pulled into this, mind you, it's your ass. You don't. This is a whole bunch of fuck that you don't want, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That keeps a peace. You know what I mean? It's that sleeping bear. Don't wake the sleeping bear.
But on the other hand, every country in the world already knows that America has the strongest military in the world by far.
But
right?
yet
So like I don't think we need to take that step.
I would think you wouldn't, you know what I mean? But clearly we're in circumstances where and have been in circumstances where we did. So as an example, a couple episodes ago, I played that thing where Trump was talking about Article 5 and, would they come to help us? I don't think so. Would France come to help us? I don't think so. And it's like, dude, you fucking moron. The United States.
The only time Article 5 was imposed was
for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, while I agree with you in theory, I don't think that his history has proven your point, but it has proved mine, which is everyone always wants to go in one form or another and try to take down the champ.
Yeah, but by behaving the way that we are, we're making China the champ instead of us.
Again, you're not going to get a disagreement from me on that one.
So my number 9 is term limits will be imposed on all congressional members and Supreme Court justices. Justices will be voted in.
Hold on. Before you say your term limit, I'm going to give you mine. Okay.
Okay.
And I know I skimmed through yours, but I don't think that I remember exactly. But mine would be 12 years.
Not too far off. So justices will be voted in by the people rather than chosen by the elites. Term limits for the House of Reps will be allowed 6 terms of 2 years, so 12 years. Senate will be allowed 2 terms of 6 years, which is
12 years.
12 years.
I
think
that's perfect.
Justices will be allowed 2 terms of 10 years. But again, they have to be voted in by the people, not appointed.
Again, I don't have a problem with any of that, but I do think that when you get past 12 years in either the House or the Senate, you are no longer working for the people. You're working for yourself.
House and Senate, their terms currently are 2-year terms. They can just run as many times as they want. I want to stop that at 6 terms of 2 years. Senate, their term is already 6 years. I want to limit it to 2 terms.
I agree.
Justices, I want to impose a vote by the people. And I'm of the opinion that with the Supreme Court specifically, they need time to establish exactly what they're about, right? So I think a 10-year term is plenty. That gives them time to establish what they're about. That gives people plenty of time to say, I disagree with Justice Roberts. We're going to vote him out.
Yeah.
I disagree with Amy Coney Barrett. We're voting her out.
I agree.
I also want to throw in there a stoppage to business lobbyists.
That I will get to in my next point. But my last point within this point is that we introduce the votes of no confidence for all positions, which, if enacted by the people, results in an immediate snap election for the constituency in question. So if let's say we do a vote of no confidence in Michigan for Alyssa Slotkin for Senate, snap election, we put someone in to finish out her term, and then they can run for the next term.
Okay.
The question becomes, if they fill in for that rest of that term, it probably should not count.
No,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm
fine with that.
I think I don't think you can count it. I mean, if you're appointed in that type of circumstance, because you do have to give,
I would
die.
Amend that. I would only amend that by saying if you're serving more than half of that previous representative's term, it does count.
Well, and you have to have some sort of accommodation because, like I said, regardless of whether it's, you can take all the politics, all the all that out of it. People die, even when they're young. You know what I mean? They can get in a car accident. They could have a health issue or whatever. So you don't know. But I think that the biggest problem with Congress right now is the fact that it's geriatric and it has not come. When you have the vast majority of your representatives should be enjoying retirement on a beach with a Mai Tai.
Yeah.
And they're still just marching into, the hallowed halls of Congress. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Do you need to have some representatives that are in, their 60s, 70s, and 80s? Sure,
but they're going to be subject to the same term limits as anyone else.
And that's fine. You know what I mean? Like I said, that's fine. But when you have people, and I'll even use Joe Biden as an example. I mean, he was in government for how many years? 40?
He should have been subject to a vote of no confidence.
40 plus years or whatever. And look, it doesn't mean that you can't still serve. Okay? And this would be a caveat, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, let's say, a congressional member, right? You got 6 terms of 2 years. But let's say you do that, right? And then someone comes in and in 2 years, they're eating shit. You should be able to come back. But I'm not quite sure how that would work.
Well, in the same way that Trump served his first term, did not get reelected, and then did get elected in 2024, he's allowed to serve his 2 terms.
All right, so we're in agreement on that because that was how I was thinking. So let's say, for example, somebody serves 4 terms as a in the House, and then they lose. They have 2 more terms available to them.
Yeah, and I would even add the caveat that, let's say you have a really powerful candidate that just cannot lose, and they serve their full 12 years in the House, they serve their full 12 years in the Senate, and then they run for president. I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I think you should be able to serve your terms in each area.
Yeah, your terms in the House will not affect your terms in the Senate, will not affect your terms as a president.
Or as a mayor, or as a governor, or as a dog catcher.
And if you take that view, 12 years in House, 12 years in Senate, 8 years in presidency, that's a full career.
Yeah.
That's a full career.
There you go.
My last point, my last non-negotiable, there's a few moving parts on this one. So elections will be modernized under the supervision of the federal government while still maintaining the concept of states running their own elections.
Yep.
That's point number 1. Ranked choice voting will be introduced nationwide as an advancement of American democracy.
I do agree with you 100% on ranked choice voting.
It's blatantly a more democratic.
It just makes sense.
System of voting.
Yeah, it just makes sense for fairness.
It allows for third parties. It allows for so on and so forth. It just makes sense. As voting is a right guaranteed by the Constitution, all citizens are afforded the right to vote, and this cannot be taken away due to current or former incarceration, except in the case of voter fraud.
Yeah, I think I could get behind that.
Everyone gets the right to vote unless you've proven that you cannot be trusted with the right to vote.
Yeah, I
specifically.
I think that I could get behind that.
Ironically, I had a conversation last week with an individual in a Facebook group that I'm in who truly believed that eating food was a privilege for everybody.
Oh, well.
Not a right? Okay. That's a take.
Look, I firmly...
If you want good food, you have to work for it past weaning off the mother's tit.
I mean, if we're talking like prime steak, like, sure, yeah, I guess that's a privilege.
No, anything.
Okay, yeah, that's...
Well, you know what?
Guess what side of the aisle?
I'm going to go with that's an R.
Yeah. So in the same way that I don't think violent criminals should be allowed access to firearms, but nonviolent criminals should not necessarily be precluded from access to firearms. Same thing with voting. If you have proven that you are not trustworthy with the right to vote, that is the only situation under which your right to vote will be revoked.
I agree.
If you are... if you got pinched for selling weed and you didn't have a gun in the house, you didn't have any weapons in the house aside from the kitchen knives, whatever, that's not grounds to have your voting right taken away, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you.
if you are convicted on voter fraud, that is grounds to have your voting right taken away.
Absolutely.
Next, exploration, not necessarily a guarantee of moving towards a secure virtual ballot to streamline voting processes.
Okay, this is where you might have a little bit of pushback from me. Ideally, I agree with you.
And again, I'm just talking exploration. I'm not talking guarantee on this.
Okay, so we can agree on that. All right,
I'm just simply talking about exploration. I know there's a couple European countries that have really secure virtual voting ballots.
Well,
but
here's the fly in that ointment. All right, and we've seen it already play out January 6th. Okay?
I'm happy to take criticism on this one. Again, this is not a guarantee. This is just an exploration.
Well, like I said, ideally, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely insane, first off, that Election Day is not a national holiday.
Which is the following point after this one.
Okay, so that should just be...
It should be a national holiday because everyone that chooses to vote should have the ability to do so.
Now, the problem that you run into when you get into any type of online voting is, I mean, there's a couple of things that you could get into a problem with on that, okay? One, there is the potential for hacking. I mean, bottom line.
Again, I'm only talking exploration, not a guarantee.
What I would actually like to see, all right, and again, in a perfect world where you could guarantee that was not going to get hacked and the crypto bros and the blockchain people have figured out how to make sure that there's no way that it could be fucked with. Absolutely, I'm 100% behind it. However, I don't think in this world, when you're talking about getting hacked, we've seen it. No matter how good the security is, there's always somebody out there that can hack it. And no matter how bad,
that's fine.
No matter how bad the virus is, there's always somebody that can fix it. But it doesn't mean that the damage doesn't get done. So what I would actually like to see in lieu of that is I would like to see not only voting day be a national holiday, I'd like to see it be extended to 2 days. So I'd like it to be, let's say, for example, it's a Tuesday, right? Every 4 years in November, every 2 years in November.
This past one was November 5th. We'll make it November 5th and 6th.
I think that if you had 2 days, national holiday, get out the vote, and most importantly, people are required to vote. I think that you should be required.
I've played around with that idea before. The only caveat, and I don't necessarily say that that's a bad idea. There are other countries like Australia where you are required to cast your ballot. The only addition that I would make to that is having a no vote choice.
No, I that's fine.
Because if you genuinely don't like any of the candidates and you don't want to give them any of your support,
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Within your right to do that.
I totally agree.
If we are mandating that people cast a ballot, you should have the right to say, I choose no one.
Yes, I totally agree with that. 100%.
And then, again, following that up, in-person voting. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
How many people do not have a social security card or some sort of ID card?
Plenty.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised. I think you'd probably be surprised.
I would be shocked about that.
Yeah, I've actually, believe it or not, I ran into an adult, and I don't know how this person has made it through life, to be honest with you, but I ran into an adult who had only recently gotten a social security number.
Really?
Yeah, and it was the weirdest thing because I'm like, how do you navigate getting a job, paying tax? So like this person was
was all under the table, I guess.
It was all under the table. It was like this person had spent, God, I don't even know, 30, 35 years under the table. It was somebody who did, manual labor. So not a big surprise, but still had made it. I don't know how old this person was, but if I were to guess, I would guess 30, 35. Had made it to 30, 35 years old without a social security number.
That, to me, that is shocking.
It blew my mind. But
yeah, you're talking at least in the millions of people that don't have federal documentation whether they lost it or it got destroyed or they never got it or whatever the case may be. And that's definitely a problem, and that needs to be resolved. But if you are a citizen registered with a social security number, whether you have your card or not, whether you have an ID or not, voting is a right. It should not be taken away from you except for the extreme circumstance of voter fraud. I also agree election days are immediately declared federal holidays. No one is working on election days.
They shouldn't, and it should be 2 days so that you may have the opportunity for everyone to get out to the polls. I don't even have a problem with the though it's a bit ridiculous, the idea of having all of the everything be a paper ballot. I don't really have a big problem with it aside from the fact that it takes more time to find out who the winner is.
Right.
So like for the idea of
well, it can be a paper ballot. We have ways of counting paper ballots.
Yeah, I know. I understand
it doesn't have
that.
to be.
But
it doesn't have to be a person tallying.
Well, I guess my point is that you've seen on the right this idea that anything that is computer counted is potentially available for fraud, and that's true. You can't deny that that's potentially true.
Yeah, and I mean that goes back to the whole I would like to explore the option of a secure virtual ballot, but I'm not tied to that as a principle.
Well, again,
you could. I mean, Dancing with the Stars and American Idol had a good turnout calling in.
Yeah,
but I think go ahead.
The last point for modernizing elections is the concept of getting money out of politics, eliminating lobbying as a concept.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, you have to shift all elections to public funds, which obviously that, we would have to budget around to do that. But at the same time,
I totally agree with you about the concept.
All candidates are given equal airtime on mainstream media, so on and so forth.
Like all of that, I totally agree with you on. The dark money, the PACs, the super PACs, all that shit's got to go. It's got to go. I mean, look, how much was this last election? What was it? $2-3 billion was spent on that's ridiculous. That's stupid.
It was more than that, certainly.
Well, whatever it was in the billions.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's ridiculous. There's no need for that. And I'll tell you another thing you don't need. You don't need 2 years of running a fucking campaign. And I'll tell you another thing.
Most European countries have 2 months of
if you need more than a quarter, 3 months, right? If you need more than a fiscal quarter to make your point, you have no point. If you need more than that to run your election, you don't have an election.
Yeah.
So my argument would be you get all of the outside donor money out of it. I wouldn't even allow for people to donate. I would make it literally, this is federally funded.
It is public funds.
It's public funds, and you've got X amount of dollars, whatever that X amount of dollars is. And good luck to you. You got 3 months to figure out how you're going to get everyone on your side.
Yeah, your campaign budgeter better have his shit together, because otherwise you're going to have a shit.
And I'm going to tell you what that does, at least in my mind, is that shows me somebody who can get their shit together and get shit done in a short,
pick the right people for the job
and do it in a short period of time. And that to me is what an executive is supposed to do. All right.
Yeah.
Now we're going to put a pin in it here.
I have probably 10 more points that I could add to this, but those are my 15 points. 5 universals, 10 non-negotiables.
Well, you can put that the rest of those on the list, because this is turning into a 3, if not a 4-part series. So for everyone who is listening and everyone that hung on till the end of this podcast, this is going to be the second part of Time to Start a New Party. The third.
Kiefer, do you have any pushback on anything that I've said tonight?
No, I've agreed 100%.
Which is a little bit disturbing, because he usually likes to push back just for the pure joy of fucking with you.
This is true.
This is going to be at least a 3-part, maybe a 4-part series. We hope that you enjoyed this. We hope that you will continue to listen. We hope that you will tune in for the next go around.
The next show, I will have a few pointers of my, how shall I say, suggestions.
All right. Well, with that, it's another Elsie's Little Pickles.
Funnier because I don't hear it.
Yeah.
So it just looks like you're swinging arms.
Well, the funny part is
air drumming
I'm still recording. The funny part is I'm still recording. So for the people who actually stuck around to hear the end of that song, you get this little treat. Adios, motherfuckers.